All right, so the approximate value of a level 20 fully enhanced, fully masterwork, maxed out stats weapon with double enhanced perks at the very minimum, right? If you have multiple perks, you can it doesn't cost you any more materials to get that full enhancement. But to get a weapon to level 20 with double enhanced perks, masterwork, and everything, it's going to cost you 2 Ascendant Alloys, obviously. It's also going to cost you 6 Enhancement Prisms, and then it's going to cost you between 76 and 70, or between 73 and 76 Enhancement Cores, depending on whether the weapon is crafted from scratch, or it's just getting a Tier 3 enhancement to a non-craftable weapon, right? So basically what this means, and on top of that, it's going to cost you between 124,000 glimmer and 170,000 glimmer, right? Depending on whether it is a Tier 3 enhancement or a crafted weapon. The crafted weapon being the more expensive on the cores and the glimmer, but less expensive on prisms, right? It's four prisms for a crafted level 20 weapon, and it's 6 prisms for a Tier 3 enhancement. But the alloys are the main expense, right? When you're looking at equivalent value, 1 Ascendant Alloy is worth 10 prisms, right? And 10 prisms is worth, 1 core, or 1 prism is worth 10 cores. So 10 cores into 1 prism, 10 prisms into 1 alloys, that's the same thing as 100 enhancement cores, right? And you may be thinking, well, that's not realistic. People just are just going to use their alloys. Well, come to find out, through a poll that I posted on my community tab about midway through the season, most people, I think around 75% of you or something like that, if I remember correctly, are actually just buying all of your Ascendant Alloys, right? You're not farming activities to get these alloys, you're just buying them from Rahool, which means that you're basically dumping either 10 prisms at once, or you're spending 100 enhancement cores, one or the other, right? Or a mix of both. Right, and so that means that the equivalent value of 1 fully masterwork double enhanced perks level 20 weapon comes out to the equivalent of 316 to 333 enhancement cores and 284,000 glimmer to 310,000 glimmer, right? Again, depending on whether it's crafted or Tier 3 enhanced. So, on average, like 320 cores per weapon and nearly 300,000 glimmer, right? Or I guess to be a little bit more accurate, probably around 300 or 290,000 glimmer, right, on average. So when you do this to 50 weapons, which is what I did, so I'm showing you in this video what I invested my materials in, and I'm just going to show you the top 50 weapons here, right? I organized them into my vault here just so it'd be easier to display, and I did this in order of from bottom to top, my lowest level weapons with the lowest number of kills on the kill tracker, right? Just to give you an example of what I got the most use out of this past season, right? And this is covering all weapons that released post final shape or were newly modifiable post final shape, right? So you may see like a few brave weapons from Into the Light, right? Well, they were not enhanceable before the final shape. Once the final shape came out, we were then able to get that Tier 3 enhancement on there with enhanced perks. And same goes for some of the older Nightfall weapons, like this is the older Warden's Law that released before the final shape. And some world drop weapons, right? Like Crux Termination released before the final shape, but it was only enhanceable post final shape. So these are the top 50 weapons, which is the majority of the weapons that I dumped materials into. And if you're curious as to what the value is, given the numbers that I just told you, that one weapon is worth 300 plus enhancement cores and nearly 300,000 glimmer, well, when you do the math on this, the equivalent value of this one page in my vault here is 16,000 enhancement cores. That's like 16 maxed out stacks of cores in your inventory, right? Most people don't have that, even the people that cheesed the enhancement cores back when they were farmable, like way back before Witch Queen even released, right? So 16,000 enhancement cores is the approximate value of this page in my vault, and 15 million glimmer, right? That's how much it would cost you to masterwork every single weapon in this vault up to level 20, right? Now, obviously, I saved a lot of enhancement cores because I farmed prisms, I farmed ascendant alloys, and glimmer. You just naturally farm it. So it's not like I actually spent 16,000 cores, but what I did spend here, if you break it down into cores, prisms, alloys, and glimmer, would be the equivalent of 3,300 cores. So at the very least, it would cost you 3.5 stacks of enhancement cores, right? 3.3 thousand cores, and then 270 enhancement prisms, and 100 ascendant alloys, right? And 6.5 million glimmer, right? So, but just to sum it up easily, 16,000 cores, 15 million glimmer. So, what on earth why would I want to spend that much? So I wanted to kind of talk about the loot. Just to reflect back on the season as we go into Revenant. Obviously, a lot of these weapons I'm going to be bringing into Revenant, especially stasis weapons and arc weapons, maybe a bit of void, and just generally some good weapons all around, right? So starting from the least used weapons to the most used weapons here, let's go over them, right? So Wild Style. This one has nothing on the kill tracker, and it's one of the lowest level weapons, right? I just brought this up to level 17, but I landed this, I think, 2 weeks ago or something, whenever this was dropping from Grandmasters, and I finally got the roll that I was looking for with Disorienting, Reconstruction, and Vorpal. I just replaced this with the other tier 3 enhanced Wild Style that I had Reconstruction and One for All with Stats for All as an option, but I prefer Vorpal for the consistency, right? So I will be using this a lot going forwards whenever I need a solar grenade launcher for utility, and with the season coming up, we have concussive reload or weaken clear. So grenade launchers are going to be stunning overloads, applying void debuffs, weakening targets, and automatically reloading my stowed weapons. So this could be pretty valuable, right? Then we've got another Nightfall weapon here, Scintillation. So this is new to Season 24. It dropped in the Glassway, the first strike of the season, I believe. And it dropped one more time in another Nightfall. I can't remember which one, but I finally landed this Rewind Rounds and Bait and Switch, which is basically the God Roll. Right, so I thought it was definitely going to be worth investing materials into this thing, even though it is a low level and I haven't done much with it yet. But yeah, still one of the best burst linear fusion rifles. I have also got a rewind and surrounded that I will probably do a tier 3 enhancement on as well. But yeah, Perfect Paradox. So this was a double perk weapon, right? Which we will be getting more double perk weapons with the new version of Onslaught releasing in Revenant, which I'm pretty excited for. There's a little trick that you could do. I don't know if you'll be able to do it in Revenant. You probably will, as long as Enigma Protocol is still active. The first drop that you get in the first chest in Enigma Protocol is a double perk weapon. And as long as you don't complete Enigma Protocol beyond that checkpoint, you can just farm that activity over and over and over and over again and constantly get double perks. So this is a pretty good roll here with Pugilist and Trench Barrel. Unfortunately, it doesn't have 1-2 punch as an option. That would have been perfect if I had, if I could just switch between Trench Barrel and 1-2 punch depending on my build. Nonetheless, though, it's a rapid fire shotgun, so it's very good for DPS, especially with Trench Barrel. Having 3 shots post melee do I think 50% more damage. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, so really good shotgun, but I haven't really put it to use yet. Then we've got Qullim's Terminus, which is obviously an older, it's from King's Fall, but with the release of the final shape, Bungie let us put enhanced perks on those older raid weapons that are adepts, right, or Harrowed in the case of the King's Fall weapon. So I've got Unrelenting and Headstone on here, which replaces my base version that had the exact same perks, right? And this is just much cooler looking icon, so I thought it would be worth it for me to invest all the materials in that. Nox Perennial, and by the way, it resets like your kill tracker and everything when you do the tier 3 enhancement, when you do that masterwork. It's just going to overwrite the old kill tracker. So even though some of these weapons are showing like no kills or some kills, it's not necessarily the case. Like I used Nox Perennial quite a lot on Crota and for some other situations, so it definitely had more than 16 kills on it, but I just decided to give it the tier 3 enhancement. This is the god roll for Nox Perennial with Envious Assassin and Control Burst, right? Then there's Speleogist, which just released in the last act, along with, Aberrant Action, I think. Target lock and deconstruct, so this is just kind of for niche purposes here for, basically bursting down enemy vehicles, constructs like tanks, walkers, right? You get a 40% damage buff from deconstruct and a 40% damage buff from target lock simultaneously, and deconstruct also reloads the mag as you do damage, which synergizes with target lock. So this is basically the max damage option for Speleologist, except for surrounded. You could technically put surrounded on here instead of target lock. Either one's kind of niche, but target lock has a little bit better synergy with deconstruct, so I thought it may as well just go with that. Right. Then Rufus's Fury. I got a whole bunch of these from doing the Root of Nightmares Cataclysm Challenge, which I posted videos on the channel about. You get 6 perks with 1 drop, which is the equivalent of having 9 unique rolls in 1 weapon, right? Because you've got 3 perks and 3 perks, so 3 times 3 is 9 combinations of perks. So a lot of different uses here. This was basically the best drop that I got for Rufus, with Demo and Frenzy being on my original crafted Rufus. So this basically just replaces my original. And then I've also got the option of Hatchling to synergize with a Swarmer's build on my Warlock, or something like that. And then you can never really go wrong with Reconstruction or Rewind rounds. Then I've got a Midnight Coup here with Firefly and Frenzy. So there was 2 roles that I was looking for. Well, maybe 3, but I got 2 of the roles that I was looking for during Into the Light. One was Firefly Frenzy, the other one was Explosive Payload and Kinetic Tremors. So this is my less used version of Midnight Coup. This is better for lower end content, for clearing out ads, just having the good feels of Frenzy with a little bit of solar damage to mix in, maybe synergize with a solar build somehow. Then my old Warden's Law. I overwrote my old kill tracker and gave this the tier 3 enhancement. This is perfect for my Lucky Pants build on Hunter with 4th times the charm and Vorpal. So this was being the best legendary primary hand cannon for Lucky Pants, and just in general, aside from Malfeasance in certain cases, like if you're stacking it with Witherhoard, this is the best DPS weapon for Lucky Pants hand cannon, or for the Lucky Pants exotic. Extended mag here, so technically I can get a lot of ammo downrange and never have to reload. Then I've got Luna's Howl. I've got a shiny here, which I held on to. I also have another one that I use, but this one's got Subsistence and Incandescent, which is really good on solar builds where you've got Ember of Empyrean proc, so you're just getting restoration on every single kill, right? It just kind of makes heal clip a little bit futile in that sense. If you're on a solar subclass, you've got good access to healing, then you could just keep, you basically just keep this thing going without ever having to reload. It's actually pretty nutty. So very good combination of perks there. Then my Astyanax IV from Nightfalls, right? This one has the ability to be enhanced, so I went ahead and enhanced this utility option here with Shoot to Loot and explosive head. I always like to have a precision bow at least a few of these in my vault, you know, ideally one in each element that has explosive shoot to loot with explosive, because then you can pick up ammo and orbs of power from long range, and you don't even have to hit them because the explosive radius on explosive head picks up all those items, so they synergize really good together. Then I've got this Mercado 45 with demo and surrounded, and I use this a ton before the final shape released in Onslaught on basically all my strand builds, because this thing gives you a ton of grenade energy, right? So it's really good for like abeyant leaps and shackles and grenade builds in general, and then surrounded for that 45 or 47% damage buff. You know, you're always surrounded in Onslaught, so it's really ideal there. So yeah, this was definitely my most used machine. Like I probably had 10,000 plus kills on this thing before I gave it the tier 3 enhancement, which is why it's a little bit lower down on the list. But yeah, this was before the final shape. This was used a ton, right? But obviously we got Pro Memoria, and you can see where Pro Memoria is, spoiler. It's up near the top there for me now. Undercurrent, this also got the ability to be enhanced, so I went ahead and did that because this one's got demo and volt shot, or if I just want more volt shot procs a little bit quicker on those reloads, I can use stats for all, but I'm just kind of a junkie for demolitionist. I like my grenades. Any chance I can get to get demo on a weapon, I pretty much go for it, especially if it's a special weapon or an ad clear weapon, right? Deliverance, I had this one sitting around from an old run of Vow of the Disciple, like before Pantheon or any of that stuff. I just ended up getting the role that I crafted on my base version, which is Compulsive and Chill Clip with demo and bait and switch, but it sat in my vault forever because you were never able to enhance the perks. So really the old adept weapons were just worse than the craftable weapons, because you could put enhanced perks on the craftable weapons. Now the adept versions are always better than the craftable, which is the way it should be, because, you know, for the cost of a little bit more RNG, you get adept mods along with double to triple perks, right? So yeah, I've got 2 roles here that I would use quite often. I'll probably be using this with Revenant with all the stasis and the artifact. Then I picked up this Oversoul Edict this season as well, right? Because and by the way, it was only post-final shape that you can roll triple perks in each column, right? Previously, Crota's adept weapons were just single perks. Same thing for Root of Nightmares. So that's why I've included them in this list here, because these are basically new modifications to these weapons, right? So I got a lot of good perks here: Demolitionist, Volt Shot, Enlightened Action, but I'm mostly sticking with Enlightened Action and Volt Shot on this Oversoul Edict because it's just going to allow me to have quicker reloads, spread more jolt, and synergize with my arc builds, right? So really good rapid fire frame. Pulse Rifle that will also be overcharged all season in Revenant, given the fact that Pulse Rifles are able to stun unstoppable champions. Then I've got a No Hesitation, which I kind of wish I got to use more. It's a great feeling weapon. It's kind of like a solar incandescent Osteostriga, but in legendary format. But it's also a support frame weapon, so it's just kind of more suitable to a support build, like on Warlock specifically. And I didn't play a lot of support role this past season, but that didn't stop me from giving it a full masterwork here with Enhanced Psychic and Incandescent, and I certainly expect to be using this more often in Onslaught come next season, which starts tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. Patron of Lost Causes, being a lightweight frame scout rifle, this was the main appeal to me. Simply, like, I have a hung jury with shoot to loot and kinetic tremors that I use all the time as my kinetic scout rifle option. But this one's a pretty good alternative here because I've got basically the 4 best perks if I want triple tap and explosive, or triple tap and kinetic tremors, or rapid hit. Yeah, triple tap, kinetic, rapid hit, explosive, kinetic tremors. I mean, you can't really go wrong with this thing. It gives you extra mobility, so really good for hunter builds. You get faster procs on those kinetic tremors because it's a lightweight frame, which has a faster RPM compared to something like hung jury. So it's a pretty good feeling weapon. Pretty happy with that one. Then I've got a Ros Arago IV, which this one took me a while to get to drop. I think this one actually dropped for me after the final shape released. Like I had a few before that, but I was looking for repulsor brace and onslaught for my Gerfalcon's Hauberk Hunter, or maybe even like a grenade build on my Titan, or a Briarbinds build on my Warlock, but mainly for that volatile Hunter build, just to constantly get overshields. And onslaught just kind of goes nuts on this Ros Arago. Right, so I thought that would be worth the investment there. Summum Bonum from Salvation's Edge with, I decided, I haven't really used this yet all that much. I've done a little bit of ad clear with it, but I want to put it to the test on like the Harrowed, or a dungeon or a raid boss where a sword is applicable, and especially if you can benefit from wolf pack rounds from Ergosum. This thing has Relentless Strikes and Whirlwind Blade as my enhanced perks. So this thing is supposed to be pretty much meta for legendary swords, so I'm looking forward to using that. Then I've got a few edge transits. This is the first one here in the list, and this one's got Envious Assassin and Deconstruct. I think I excluded my shiny edge transit. I have a shiny edge transit with Cascade Point and Envious Assassin and Deconstruct. Or maybe, no, it's just Cascade, Deconstruct, Bait and Switch. I can't remember what this other perk was. But I didn't have the best barrel, and I didn't have the best magazine. So I kept 2 edge transits individually, you know, non-shiny versions, one with Envious Assassin and Deconstruct, one with Bait and Switch, obviously. And then I did also enhance the shiny. It's just I didn't include it here because I only had space for 50 weapons on that first page of my vault, right? So I actually spent more than I'm displaying here in this video. But Envious Assassin, Deconstruct, really good combination for taking out Briggs. You're going to reload the mag as you do damage, and you get that 40% damage buff, which is just really fun against, like, especially that Brig in the opening encounter of Exodus Crash, or if you wanted to use it on a walker. Like, really good just for melting down those vehicles and constructs in endgame content, right? And then obviously quick launch and spike grenades is just what I wanted for my barrel and magazine. I can't remember what masterwork I had on this, but yeah, pretty much a 5 out of 5 there. Falling Guillotine, not a shiny, but this is the max damage god roll with Frenzy and Surrounded, so as long as you can get those 2 proc, this is the most amount of damage that Falling Guillotine can do, especially if you're solo, and especially if you're not using Wolfpack rounds, because there's some unique synergies between Wolfpack rounds and Relentless Strikes and Whirlwind Blade, right? But it also might be, I think it's actually a bug, so that might get patched out in the future, but Frenzy and Surrounded will remain the same, right? So if you're solo and you can proc both of these, that's 15% damage buff plus a 47% damage buff, I believe. So that's pretty good there. I used it, I think, in my first video of the season, or my second video of the season, where I was doing 3 million damage to Rathiel in a single damage phase using this thing in combination with Wolfpack round Ergosum. Then my more used, more enemies defeated Luna's Howl compared to the Subsistent Incandescent one. This obviously synergizes better with builds where I don't have as easy access to healing. Like if I'm not on a solar build, or if I just don't have healing grenades, or, you know, etc. Heal Clip and Incandescent, you can't really go wrong with that combination. It's not, you know, this is nothing compared to, you know, like having Heal Clip and Incandescent on Aberrant Action like we have now with a special ammo rocket sidearm, or even Martyr's Retribution with the same 2 perks. But for a legendary primary weapon, still pretty good combination, and it's basically a 5 out of 5 setup. I got a reload masterwork, I got light mag, and I got fluted barrel. So this thing is just very snappy, good handling, and it has the maximum reload speed possible. Then I've got a Maahes HC4 with Rapid Hit and Frenzy. This one I decided to keep around for my Lucky Pants Hunter build, right? With Rapid Hit and Frenzy and Omelon Fluid Dynamics. Being a 180 RPM hand cannon, I think that's the best fire rate for Lucky Pants to get the most amount of shots off within the illegally modded holster buff. I know we're getting changes to Lucky Pants and Revenant, but so things might change, but this this is the reason I saved this thing. I have several words of Crota from Crota's End with better ad clear perks and just better all around with Cursed Thrall, but this thing should be really good at melting bosses with Lucky Pants, so Rapid Hit and Frenzy there. So that was the reason I held on to that one. And then I've got this Geodetic HSM, which I featured in the last video I posted a couple days ago to take down the Harrowed. Being an adaptive frame sword, I think it does slightly more damage than Falling Guillotine because adaptives are better than vortex frames. And I've got the combo here of Relentless Strikes and Roland Blade to synergize with Wolfpack rounds. So really good combination there. And Geodetic HSM has some unique traits. It has Nadir Focus, which gives you extra lunge range on swords, so it means that you can actually sword skate with this thing. It would be the second best option to sword skate around with a non-eager edge sword, right? You get like more lunge range, so that's kind of neat. But it also has more impact damage than other swords. It has like Bequest has the most impact damage out of any sword, but this thing has the second highest impact damage. So it's kind of weird that there's like two adaptive frame swords that just have more impact damage than the other adaptives, right? So Geodetic being the second best there, right? So this thing did pretty good against Harrowed. Then I've got Crux Termination, which I got in Season of the Wish, Season 23 with Clown Cartridge and Explosive Light. So that is basically the the max DPS, max damage perk combination there with Impact Casing for more impact damage and Quick Launch, right, for better handling and projectile speed. And I think I can't remember what the Masterwork is, but this was a 5 out of 5. So I held on to this as soon as I got it. I Masterworked it right away, and then when Final Shape released, I dumped all the resources in there to get that tier 3 enhancement. Then I've got a Fang of Ir Yut, which I saved from the same Crota farm as the Oversoul Edict I showed earlier with 6 perks, 3 in each column here. So I've got Shoot to Loot, which is basically all I was looking for out of this thing, and Hatchling. Then I've got Line in the Sand, which I featured in another YouTube video on Devil's Lair, taking out the Walker. You got Deconstruct in combination with Bait and Switch, so 40% damage plus 30% damage. That is the highest damage perk combination that you can get on any linear fusion rifle in the game, so that's kind of unique. It's obviously kind of a niche specialty weapon, but again, I've got double perks here, so if I wanted to, I can run Clown Cartridge with Bait. If an enemy isn't a construct or a vehicle, I could just run Clown Cartridge. And but either way, like, Deconstruct is reloading the mag as you do sustained damage, so you really can't go wrong with Deconstruct, even if there aren't enemies to get that extra 40% damage buff, right? Because it's kind of like a pseudo reconstruction, which, by the way, reconstruction is getting nerfed pretty heavily with Revenant, so perks like Deconstruct might be a decent alternative there. Then I've got a Shiny Recluse. I've got a couple of these, but this was the shiny that I held on to because it's got Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing Rounds. It's basically all I care about. This is great for like my Sentinel Titan with Controlled Demolition, or just getting Void Overshields for Offensive Bulwark and Grenade Energy, or any subclass in general where I just want to do Ad Clear versus Trash Mobs and have an Overshield at the same time, right? So you can't really go wrong with that. Then I've got a Faith Keeper here. As you can see, the levels on the weapons are getting higher as we go through this list, so I'll be finishing with the highest level and most kills last, or one or the other. I put the same perks on this Faith Keeper that I did on my Crux Termination, that I got on Crux Termination, because Clown Cartridge and Explosive Light is theoretically the most amount of damage that you can do with this thing / DPS. It is a precision frame rocket launcher, so it's got a tracking module built into it, which is really nice, and it only does 5% less damage than aggressives and adaptives. I haven't used it all that much, but theoretically this could have a pretty good place somewhere in some situation. Then I've got Martyr's Retribution, so I landed a Heal Clip and Incandescent roll in my first bulk spending of Echoes Engrams when this thing came out, I think on the first day, with hard launch and high velocity rounds, but I think I still have max velocity pretty much with linear compensator. But Heal Clip and Incandescent is just the no-brainer, right? Waveframe grenade launchers, you're always reloading them after every shot anyways, because you're using them for ad clear, right? So you should be using them for ad clear, just like Forbearance. So having Heal Clip on there is kind of like having, Soul Drinker on Forbearance. It's just going to give you heals on reloads, but obviously you're getting a much better heal. You're getting Cure, and you're applying that to your allies, and you can synergize that with like Ember of Benevolence for more ability uptime. So Heal Clip is going to be by far the best perk with Martyr's Retribution. I use this quite a bit in overthrows just to test it out. Then Mountaintop, obviously, being enhanceable now. I got this demo Frenzy roll that I like a lot. Having Frenzy on here is good for max reload speed. So if I'm going to use this to do sustained damage versus an enemy, like a champion or a brig or even a boss, if I run out of heavy ammo, I can just use this to dump a whole ton of ammo. Get that 15% damage buff on every shot, unlike Recombination, and be able to get the most amount of DPS out of it at the same time through max reload speeds. With Demolitionist on here as well, so I can occasionally get a free reload, but I can also generate grenade energy with Demo and Indomitability if I do a bit of ad clear with this thing, right? So it's good synergy there. With Spike and Hard Launch, so pretty much a 5 out of 5 for this setup, right? I do have an auto-loading recombination. It's just I don't really use Mountaintop for that purpose of only pulling it out occasionally. I like using it to do more sustained damage versus champs and stuff like that. And I think I don't have like spike grenades on my other roll anyways. Then I've got a Non-Denouement here, or Non-Denouement, as we say here in the French area of the world that I live in. With Dragonfly and Volt Shot. Originally I had Archer's Tempo and Volt Shot. I thought I didn't need Dragonfly, and I went like max draw time and max draw speed or whatever. And something about it just didn't feel right. Being a precision frame bow, I like more accuracy on my precision frame bows. I've come to realize, especially if I don't have explosive head on there, and I want to land precision hits. Having more accuracy to me is better than draw time. Like if I want draw time, I'll just go use the Vice Stinger arc bow from Season of the Seraph. I can't even remember what it's called. But yeah, lightweight frame bows are just better for that. Better reload, better draw time. You have a precision frame bow, use it to its advantage. Land those precision hits, you set off a Dragonfly explosion, and then every shot after is applying jolt at the same time. So this is actually pretty crazy, and I just can't wait till bows come back in the artifacts so that I can use this thing more. Then I've got the Call. Obviously I have a couple calls, so this is my less used one, and I actually crafted this one with Slice and Vorpal, specifically inspired by Salvation's Edge, because during the Herald encounter, I was often doing the middle plate, like you know how you split off into three pairs, right? So I was always in the middle up against the Phalanx with the shield, and he's pretty tanky. So being like on I think I was running a Lorelei Splendor build, so I'd often be putting down my barricade, which means that or using my thruster dodge on Prismatic, or dodging with my Hunter, right? So no matter what I do, if I use my class ability, if I could spam it, then I'll be able to apply Sever quite often. So I give myself 40% extra survivability through Slice, and then Vorpal to actually defeat those elites a little bit quicker. But yeah, that's kind of more of a niche scenario use, right? You can see where my other call is and why it's so much higher. So I'll go over the perks when I get there. Prolonged Engagement, being an older Vanguard Ops weapon, this did get the ability to enhance the perks, which is kind of nice. So I had this one with 5 perks, 3 in the left, 2 in the right, with subsistence and headstone or surrounded as pretty good options there. So I can synergize with stasis builds, or I can just get a lot of damage out of it all at once. So it's pretty nice. I mean, it's basically stasis funnel web or recluse. I think it's better than the Yaravit that released with this season. Maybe not as good on stability and recoil control, but I just like the feel and I like the sound of those Vice Stinger SMGs. It's 900 RPM as well, lightweight frame, synergizes with hunter builds, get that 20 mobility. So yeah, should be pretty good in Revenant as well. Then I've got my most used edge transit here with Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch. Obviously, that is kind of the universal go-to combo there for pretty much any dungeon and raid boss, with quick launch and spike grenades, so it's a 5 out of 5. Then I've got a Nullify here with Heal Clip and Incandescent. I still have not got an Adept. I've got a few Adept Nullifies with 3 perks in each column, and I've got like Firefly, Chaos Reshaped, Incandescent, but I don't have a Heal Clip Incandescent combination. So I decided to just, you know, keep Heal Clip and Incandescent on this Nullify in case I need that healing, right? But obviously it's a very good pulse rifle. Then my most used Midnight Coup with only 243 enemy defeats, but keep in mind I only use this in endgame and I don't use it for ad clear. I use it for stunning champs and I use it for doing sustained damage to beefy targets with the kinetic tremors, right? So it's a double damage perk, 15%, you know, extra damage from explosive payload, and then kinetic tremors being like almost like an ignition's worth of damage when you could proc that, right? So definitely worth it if you can get those 2 perks. Bold endings here. I know this is higher up on my, you know, it's a level 36. I have 1,300 kills on it. So obviously it's like miles ahead of my Midnight Coup. But Midnight Coup, the one I just went over, is way better than this thing. This thing is just not endgame viable at all. The only reason it's such a high level and I have so many defeats is because I've only used this in the Pale Heart. The reload on it is pretty awful. It doesn't have any it doesn't have reconstruction, doesn't have any auto loading or reload perks really outside of rapid hit, and which is kind of a shame because it's a heavy burst as well. So you look at things like Warden's Law, and it just doesn't compete at all. Like I was hoping this thing would have been like you know, a stasis version of Warden's Law, but unfortunately it's pretty much purely meant for ad clear, and it's not even that good at it. It's good at it within one magazine, but as soon as you have to reload it, it just feels super sluggish. It takes you out of the combat, and it feels really bad when you do have to reload. So unless you're running like Marksman's Dodge and you're constantly just spamming your dodge to reload this, I'd say it's not really worth necessarily even investing in at all. But it is fun. It's got Headstone and Dragonfly, so if you're just running around in Overthrow and the Pale Heart, get those precision kills, you may get that Dragonfly explosion along with creating stasis crystals, which you can then shatter. So it's like it does a ton of AoE, so it's a good amount of fun. Just doesn't have the damage output to take down a single target really in endgame content. Then Heliocentric, so prior to Aberrant Action and Rocket Sidearms in general, I mean, this thing was pretty much king of sidearms, and still, if you're looking for a legendary primary weapon, this is top tier. Like anything close quarters, like if there's a scenario where you can use like an SMG, well, you're better off just using this sidearm. Being a lightweight frame, you get that extra mobility. It does a ton of damage, a ton of DPS, more DPS than an SMG. I think they're amongst the best legendary weapons that are primaries. Heal Clip and Incandescent, super fast reloads, again with alloy magazine here. And I don't remember what the Masterwork is, but this thing is just super snappy. It's really good. I used it in Salvation's Edge. I've used it all over the place. 4,300 defeats on it, level 36. So that should tell you a little something there. Definitely worth enhancing it. And that's all post final shape. Like I had this. I even used this in Onslaught, right? So before I put the tier 3 enhancement on here, I probably had like a good 4,000 kills on this before the final shape released. Right, and then when I did the tier 3 enhancement, it wiped my kill tracker, right? So realistically, I have like double that. Then I have my most used Recluse here with Repulsor Brace and Frenzy. This is like the combo that I usually go for on most legendary primary void weapons for my Gerfalcon's Hunter build, which is pretty much all I've used this for, right? Because you don't need destabilizer rounds on a Gerfalcon's build. You're better off with extra damage because you always have Volta rounds anyways, and they don't stack with destabilizer rounds, so there's really no point. So this thing is really good on Gerfalcons. Then I've got an Adept Imminence here, which I do use. I've used this on, well, any build where I want to use, where I want Threadlings running around doing extra dark damage or just to synergize with like Swarmers. Like I use this to farm Master Abyss to get all those 6 perk Adept Crota Zen weapons. I use this on my Warlock build with Swarmers and the Wanderers just to zip through the Abyss, and this was just kind of nice to have those hatchlings running around unraveling everything with Demolitionist to give me more Threadling grenades or grapple grenades, right? So this is a really good combination here for Threadling builds specifically. Then I've got Blast Furnace, which I used a whole lot this past season with Kinetic Tremors and Frenzy. Double damage perk, you can't go wrong with that. That's the best combination that you can get on this thing. Super good at busting barrier champions, and I guess next season it'll be good at stunning unstops. I mean, you don't even need to use heavy or special weapon or special ammo on champions if you're using Blast Furnace. It just does so much damage with Kinetic Tremors being modified by the damage output of Frenzy. It's just, yeah, it's extremely good, and kind of nice that I got a shiny out of this. So this is like my most used shiny Brave weapon. Then Lost Signal, right? So I've got, what, 740 defeats on here, but a very high level, right? So defeats obviously don't really contribute as much to your level as so much as completing activities. So obviously I've used Lost Signal. I've used it in like Nightfalls. I've used it in raids. I've used it in a lot of encounters where you get a lot of level progression for completing those encounters, right? Yeah, so I mean, next season this is going to be absolutely nuts. It's the legendary version of Witherhoard, but on stasis, so it's going to synergize with the artifact next season. I have autoloading and Vorpal on mine, but you can certainly go with like One for All instead and just lean full on into ad clear. But I like using this thing like Witherhoard, where I'm sticking in beefier targets with that shot, and then moving on to my other weapons, so that this thing is just doing damage over time to to majors and bosses. So that's why I was thinking Vorpal would be better for my case there, right? So now we're in my top 10 weapons, obviously, with starting off with that Adept Imminence and Blast Furnace, and then Lost Signal being number 10, 9, number 8 on the list. Then number 7 would be Forthcoming Deviance. So again, this is a higher level because I've used this a ton in Overthrow, right? Mainly because glaives aren't exactly endgame viable, especially this past season. They're not in the artifact. They won't be in the artifact next season, or at least for the first act. But you can really level up glaives like crazy just from the melee. Yeah, you just get a lot of defeats and level up. So I've used this a lot in Overthrow. The combination that I went with here, Demo and Chain Reaction, so just really nice neutral perk combination here where you can generate a ton of grenade energy. You get like 20% grenade energy on a single kill, and with Chain Reaction you can get like half your grenade back with like one shot into a pack of ads. So you really, like, you can spam a ton of grenades with this thing. Yeah, very good glaive. It's rapid fire as well, so it feels good to use. Snappy, quick reload, quick fire rate. Then for number 6 here, I've got my other Imminence, so my main Imminence, just the crafted base version. It's not Adept. I'm hoping that I will eventually get an Adept with the same combination, but Perpetual Motion and Chaos Reshape, that's my go-to. I ended up settling on Perpetual Motion just simply because with this thing being a lightweight frame, 900 RPM and an SMG, and I wanted it to feel good. I wanted it to feel like a laser, so I tested it out in the Enclave, and it feels way better. As long as you're moving around, you're just gonna, this thing's gonna shoot like a laser. You get extra handling, extra reload. and extra stability, right? Chaos Reshaped gives you up to a 35% damage buff and heals you, so extremely good. So as long as you can be in combat for for long enough, you can get this perk procced, and it's incredibly good. Then for number 5, I've got Critical Anomaly, so I spent a ton of time again in Overthrow with this thing. Imminence, the last one that I talked about, I used in basically all of Nightfalls, anything where there was barriers, or just anything for ad clear in general, so raids, dungeons, like this is endgame viable for sure, that Imminence. Critical Anomaly is also endgame viable for the simple fact that it has Chill Clip, right? So you can stun Overloads and Unstoppables. And last season, or this season, I guess, since we're not in Revenant yet, you can break barriers as well. So you can stun all 3 champions with this sniper rifle. It's an aggressive frame, so its single shot damage output is amongst the best for sniper rifles. The perk combination that I ended up investing in here was Chill Clip and Explosive Payload. So Explosive Payload is actually going to proc Chill Clip even if you don't hit the enemy, right? Just from the explosive radius, so that's pretty useful. 2 shots, you freeze anything. Yeah, so really fun sniper rifle from Salvation's Edge. That's number 5. Number 4 on my list, Aberrant Action. This was the last released Radiolera weapon, right, from Echoes. So, I mean, it probably could have gotten to the top if it released earlier in the seasons, like in Act 1, for example. But yeah, I've got 4,500 defeats on this, and I've got 2 Aberrant Actions that I've invested in, but this is the only one I'm showing here because it's my most used. With Heal Clip and Incandescent, that's obviously a no-brainer. I went for max velocity. I think I did a velocity masterwork, or as high velocity as I can get. Well, actually, I think I was going for like a hybrid between reload speed and velocity. I just naturally like velocity on my rocket sidearms over blast radius, but obviously because it's got heal clip, you want max reload speed, so I've got like flared magwell, and I think I might have went for reload masterwork, right? Because obviously you want to kill reload to get cure. Super good sidearm. Then I've got this Pro Memoria. So this is my main Pro Memoria. I've got a couple of these as well, but number 3 on the list with Demo and Frenzy. Right? You'll notice I go for Demo and Frenzy quite often, but Demo on a machine gun, anytime you can get Demo on a machine gun, I always go for it because it means a lot of grenade energy, because you're always using machine guns for ad clear, right? Even if it only gives you like 10% grenade energy per kill, you get so many kills so fast with machine guns that you're just constantly going to be throwing grenades. And technically, as long as you're doing that, you'll never have to reload it either, which means it's just as good as Reconstruction, and soon to be better than Reconstruction because it's getting heavily nerfed. So Demo, you clear ads, you get grenade energy, you throw your grenade, it reloads the mag, right? And then I've got Frenzy for that 15% damage buff. If I do need to reload it, I've got max reload, I've got handling, it feels really good. I've always got a damage perk, right? There's no setup with like bait and switch or target lock, or it's just extremely good neutral game machine gun that's good in any content. Busting Tormentor's shoulders, I brought it into basically every single Grandmaster. Super good. Only 2,700 defeats, which is kind of surprising. I thought I'd have more on there, but it's level 94, so that should tell you like how many endgame activities I've brought it into, where we got completions and I got level credits for this weapon, right? Then again, I've got the call here. So number 2 on the list, this is my main call with Demo and Desperate Measures, right? And I've debated on switching Desperate Measures out for One for All in the past, but I'm so far along with this weapon with over 3,000 kills, level 96. Like, obviously it's working for me. So, I mean, Desperate Measures and One for All, you get very similar damage perks out of both of them. I think One for All might be a little bit better, but Desperate Measures does synergize better with grenade builds, and being that I have Demolitionist on here, you know, I throw grenades, get ability kills, get melee kills, doesn't really matter. You're going to proc that Desperate Measures buff, and it can be active while it's stowed as well, right? So you don't really have to think about doing too much with Desperate Measures. It's just like play your neutral game, play the way you normally would, use your gun, use your abilities, and Desperate Measures is always going to be procced. Whereas something like One for All is like, well, there has to be at least 3 enemies around, and you have to hit at least 3 of them to get that damage buff, right? So that's the one downside to One for All, where I guess that's where my thinking was with this, was I'll just go Desperate and I'll just kind of always be neutrally good, right? So that's why it's number 2 on my list. Number 1 on my list is the Slammer with Eager Edge and Cold Steel, Attrition Orbs as an option. I never use it though. Level 204, right? Actually, what was my call? Call was level 96. Pro Memoria was level 94. And so yeah, my Slammer is level 204, so that should tell you that I've used this thing more than anything this last season, right? I used it in Overthrow all the time, just for zooming around the map. I used it in Grandmaster Nightfalls for just destroying Overload champions. Obviously, we had Overload Sword, but you can combine that with Cold Steel. So even if we don't have Overload Sword in future seasons, this can still stun overloads, right? So it's really good for especially like teleporting overloads. You can just, with Eager Edge, you can just lunge right into an overload with like a heavy vortex swing. It's going to immediately stun them, and then you can basically just annihilate them right there and then, because you're using a heavy weapon. You're constantly slowing them and shattering them, and you could even take care of unstoppables, right? I don't recommend using it as an initial stun option for an unstoppable, obviously, because you'll probably get stomped to death before you can get that freeze and shatter off. But this thing is really good for overloads, right? Yeah, probably the best. I think it's just my favorite sword in the game that's legendary, right? But yeah, so level 204, only 1,000 enemy defeats, because obviously I wasn't killing anything in Overthrow with this thing really, and so most of those defeats are from like GMs and raids and stuff, from some trash mobs, but mostly from overloads, I would say. So yeah, so that's my list. Hope you enjoyed. Those are the top 50 weapons that I used post Final Shape and invested all my materials again. That's worth about 16,000 enhancement cores and 15 million glimmer. So hope you enjoyed. See you in the next season.